10, 9, ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
The clock is operating. We're underway.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And we create a maneuver node to get us right into episode 19 of Kerbalcast. Is it time for a course correction?
I'm such an idiot.
I am your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin, and relaxing on his comfy couch, our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
Coming up in today's program,
Dark Mushroom finishes his three-part series on rendezvous and docking in this week's Dark Matters.
DK with the Twitch TV channel Declarations has another Modders Minute, this week focusing on Precise Node.
We'll update you on our progress playing KSP and give you another Shay Challenge.
And we'll have your letters and the latest Kerbal news in our mission briefing.
This week's But I Digress. Should there be a digress?
Yeah, that's going to be our But I Digress segment. Should there actually be one?
This is the most meta thing ever. We're digressing on digress.
We're breaking the fourth wall completely. Yeah. Now we're getting opinions, some very mixed opinions about But I Digress.
Yeah. So
people want us to drop it. People want us to keep it. And honestly, we have gone back and forth this last week.
So we're going to consult your opinion.
Yeah.
And, it's you guys are listening, and we want to hear your opinion on what you want to listen to.
Yeah. I actually, at one point, it was like, okay, we're going to get rid of But I Digress. And then it was like, somebody wants us to keep it. Okay, we're going to keep But I Digress.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody hates it. Okay, we're going to get rid of But I. It's been like that all week.
Yeah. So it's been this fun little tennis match.
I've been texting you all week. It's like, But I Digress is off.
Yeah.
But I Digress is on. Okay, we're not going to do it. Yeah. Okay, we're going to do it.
Watch these 3 movies. Watch them now.
Don't watch them. Okay, forget it.
Wait, I'm halfway through. Okay. I need 3 TVs. Really quick. Podcast is in 2 hours. Got to watch 3 movies.
For our But I Digress, we'll talk about should there be a But I Digress. Yeah. We will get your opinion. We will read some of the letters about that. Well, you want to move on to progress update?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll go and start.
Okay, go for it.
So,
I have to ask.
Yeah.
Did you do your last minute cramming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So anyway, so tell me about the result of your cramming.
Okay, so I've been working on trying to get to Minmus, and I decided to ditch the ship that I had been trying to tweak to get there. So
remind me, had you gone into orbit or had you passed Minmus last time, or were you still trying to get there?
That's whenever I completely messed up my Z-axis.
Gotcha.
And,
okay.
Or I don't know which axis it was, but I didn't move the ship in 3 dimensions. Right. I was looking at orbit view 2-dimensionally, and so it was matching up. But then I forgot that it does not have it's not on the same plane.
Right.
So I was like,
it's tilted.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. So where the ship that I had, it got me to the Mun just fine. Mm-hmm. And it was like built in a triangular formation and stuff. And
the 3 symmetry.
Yeah, it was hard to steer, but it was fuel efficient. It was the most fuel efficient thing I ever got. So I really wanted to get that one to work. Well, I decided just to scrap it all together. I couldn't get the thrust to weight ratio nice enough to where by the time I was on my way to Minmus, I had a ship that could actually get me there. I would be on my way, but as far as like closing orbit or and making it home, it wasn't going to do it.
You used all your fuel just to get there.
Yeah, because anytime I tacked more thrust on to have more fuel by the time I got there, well, it was pretty much all of the boosters were paying for themselves.
Right.
They're like, I'm getting my way there.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm supposed to carry things too? Never mind. So I was like, oh, okay, that's not going to work. And
that is the most maddening thing.
Yeah.
Trying
to get that right. And there's probably a formula and stuff, but really it's me like, put it together, launch it, didn't work, go back, do it again.
There really, we talked about this before, but there is the point of diminishing returns.
Yeah,
because you think you think early on, well, if I need more fuel, I'll just add more fuel tanks and more thrusters, and then pretty soon, everything you're adding is just to compensate for the added weight. Yeah. You're not getting anything extra out of it.
Let's say, and I'm just making up numbers here, but let's say a booster has the thrust to carry itself and 2 units of weight.
Right.
Well, you add more on there, and eventually it gets to the point to where that booster is carrying itself
Yeah.
and like 0.1 units of weight.
Right.
You know, and you're like, okay, well, why is that one on there?
Right.
Because I thought it was going to help.
Yeah.
Because eventually they all stop, carrying the same amount of weight, and they just start carrying themselves because they weigh everything else down.
Also, I don't know if you've had this or not, but once you get past a certain part count, the efficiency of your computer running the game
Yeah.
seems to really kind of degrade as
Yeah,
well.
it doesn't want to deal with all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
It's like really 1,200 parts.
Yeah.
I have to come up with that.
Yeah.
Gee, thanks.
Yeah, you put on thermometers
Yeah.
with symmetry 8.
Yeah.
Why do you need that? So I know what temperature it is everywhere.
Just for that, I'm going to make all your porn sites chug.
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, so I started building a new ship, and it's called the Min Massive. And
The Min Massive.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, trying to get to Minmus, and
You should have called it the Minimum Massive, the Minimum Maximum,
yeah, that's what I'm hoping it'll be.
or the Mini Max.
Yeah, the min maxing.
Sorry,
This reminds me of that As the Kerbin where he's trying to name the Rolly.
Yeah, exactly.
So the thing that I built, I'm going Symmetry 4. And remember how I said I was having that issue with, I would try to put something on and the symmetry would be off, like
Right.
if I wanted to put RCS on.
And I'm just to be clear, the previous ship, the one that wasn't working, was Symmetry 3. The one
Yeah.
that you're doing now is the Mini Max is Symmetry 4.
Yeah. And I was saying that the thing was bothering me that if I wanted to put something on that was Symmetry 4,
Right.
on a ship that had primarily Symmetry 3 stuff,
It changes.
It always snapped to 2.
Yeah.
It always snapped to 4, and I was like, no, or it snapped to 3, and I was like, no, I want 4, and I'd go and click it. So eventually I had to hit the X button while I was hovering it where I wanted it to be.
Right.
With this one,
This is Kerbal's version of Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten into an autocorrect battle with Microsoft Word?
Yeah.
Where it's like you change the word and it changes it back, and you go, "No, I want it to be."
Yeah, I want this word.
I'm purposely misspelling it for a reason.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not. It's like, no, I want Symmetry 4. No, you don't.
Yeah. We need.
Please continue.
We need a giant paper clip.
Yeah, that's it.
We need a giant wrench that
Yeah.
helps you out. And it's like, oh, I see you're building a rocket. Would
Yeah.
you like to add some boosters? And like, no, I'm
and
fine.
give him a top hat.
Yeah.
I am the talking wrench, and I am here to help you.
That wasn't from anything, was that?
No, not at
Okay.
all.
And-
It's from the demented recesses of my brain.
oh, there we go. So
Please continue.
I would try to put on something that was just 1.
Right.
Or 2. Like I want to put solar panels on both sides of this. I wasn't having that issue, and I don't know if it's because it will snap itself out of Symmetry 4 easier than 3, or because the problem was fixed or something. But I just didn't get that issue the entire time I built. I was like, oh, this is just all working, because it was just infuriating, building the three
Yeah.
Symmetry rocket, because every time
I don't know. Maybe Symmetry 4 is more agreeable.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it may have been fixed because it just not once did I have that issue. So I was like, oh, okay, well, everything's running smoothly. And
The game took pity on you.
yeah. So I don't know about the booster thing because all the struts that I used, I put on the top of the booster, which it doesn't have that sink in problem.
Right.
So I was, attaching things and slapping the ship together, and I have it going at a pretty good pace. And I currently
After launch, you mean?
yeah,
Okay.
and I don't think this one will have enough fuel to. I think it may just stop in orbit around Minmus. What I'm really going to use this one for is I'm actually have a Mun encounter that it's on its way on,
Okay.
and I'm going to slingshot around the Mun and just use that for like a little gravity speed
Assist,
boost.
yeah.
I'm gonna slingshot off of that and try to see if I can get in the same orbit as Minmus.
Okay.
Because the Mun is kind of easy in that regard because you're on the same plane, so it's like you can do a lot of like cheating.
Yeah.
Because you wait until it's just at the horizon and then
Right.
you launch and you're going to run into it.
Right.
Well, that was nice for training wheels, but whenever I moved on, I'm trying to do Minmus, I don't have some like quick fix like that.
Right.
There are the two spots where it intersects, but with the plane.
Right. Yeah, there's what he's talking about is the orbital plane of Minmus is tilted compared to the orbital plane of Kerbin.
Yeah.
And there are 2 points where they intersect, and you don't have to compensate for the shift.
It's like
it's again, those are hard to hit.
Yeah, it's like a stopped clock. It's right 2 times.
Yeah, it's right twice a day.
Yeah. So, if I'm going to shoot for that spot.
That joke doesn't work as well in the digital age, though.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, because
it's like a
broken clock in the digital age is just blank.
Yeah, it's like a broken clock. It's off.
It's always right, and it's never right.
Yeah. So
it's both.
I'm hoping to.
It's Schrodinger's clock.
It's both on and off.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I can match it up to the Minmus thing.
Plane.
Yeah. So I'm going to see how well I can get the node to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's most of my progress. Is I spent because I said with the amount of time that I have right now to play. Building
with your 6-day work weeks.
Yeah, building a rocket is not the most efficient time for me. So, it's like, well, I can spend all this time building a rocket, but what am I going to talk about when it's like, oh, yeah, I'm still trying to build that perfect rocket. So I spent most of my time trying to build a rocket that I think will really get to Minmus, and I think I'm on track to having a good one. I may search out some pre-builts just to see what other people's Minmus landers look like, because the one part that's really weird for me is the lander, like for the MUN or whatever. Mine are I don't know if I'm building them the best way, and so I'm gonna start looking at other people's landers to see like what theirs look like, to see if I'm wasting any space or making something too big.
I wondered what you meant by not building it the right way.
Yeah, like, did you remember my first MUN lander? The thing was massive. The thing could have been its own ship. But the final product that landed there, it had like 5 boosters and all this fuel, and it wasn't going anywhere except back home.
Right.
And then I ended up even having that wrong because I accidentally spent half the fuel in it. So,
well, if I don't know if this will help you or not, but keep in mind the gravity on Minmus is so slight that
really?
I mean you can put little dinky engines on there, and I mean you can. When you're actually standing on Minmus, if you have your Kerbal jump, I mean he literally will float up before he comes down.
Oh wow!
Yeah, the gravity on Minmus is so, well, I guess minimum.
Yeah.
The gravity is so slight that it really doesn't take much to land and to get back off.
Oh, okay.
So you can really, if you're going to build a Minmus specific lander, you can get away with a very small. You don't need a lot of fuel and you don't need a lot of thrust.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if that helps.
No, that does.
Yeah.
Because I know that it had a different gravitational pull, but knowing that it's less means that, that initial liftoff.
Yeah.
Because the initial liftoff from the MUN, like I just took off, and I mean I got a lot of power out of my engines, but knowing that I need even less than that is actually going to be pretty good.
Have you actually? I know you've done some encounters. Have you passed Minmus close enough to actually see it in the past?
No.
Okay.
Oh, one fun thing is I was going through. Whenever I originally booted up the game, I couldn't remember if my most recent Minmus my Minmus attempt was still on there. So I go to the Space Center and I look at everything, and every time I clicked something now, there's a little information tab that is automatically open that tells me what the thing is. So like on the left bar, I would click on, I was like, wait, what is this thing? And I click on it, and there's a little pop-up that's like, that's a flag. And I'd click on, it's like, who's this? Like, oh, that's Jebediah. He's walking on the surface of the MUN. And I was like, oh. And I was like, what's this? And I really liked that.
Yeah.
Like if you clicked a debris or something, it'd be like, hey, this is some trash you left out. And I was like, oh, okay. Blow it up.
You slob.
Yeah. And so I really liked that feature. I thought that was a really cool feature. And it was like,
I bet your copy of the game says, this is some debris. You should make a game called Garbage Day.
Yeah, but there's the little window is not big. It's not obtrusive.
Yeah.
It just pops up and you're like, oh, okay, that's good to know. So I was just like, blowing up flags and stuff like that. I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to terminate. And then I accidentally, I thought it was Jebediah Kerman's craft. No, I blew up Jebediah. I clicked. I didn't know that their little suits had like explosives in them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's natural to assume that anything Kerbals have has
an
explosive in it. But yeah, I blew him up, and I went back, and my reputation had gone down. And I was like, oh yeah.
Oops.
Well, There's no way I could spin that story.
Yeah.
Like,
Kerbals apparently have no survival instinct whatsoever.
Yeah, my I don't know, my PR team is really scrambling on how they're gonna do that press release. Like, oh wait, you did what? It's like, yeah, I blew up Jebediah.
Well, he was terminal, and that's the way he wanted to go
Yeah.
out.
How did he blow up? I clicked the button that blows him up.
Well, I'll be real curious the first time you actually see Minmus, because it
Yeah.
really is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, compared, because the Mun looks very much like our moon.
Mm-hmm.
Minmus is very different.
Yeah.
So the first time you see it, it's like, wow,
What-
that's
What's funny is my ship's on the way to that gravity assist
Mm-hmm.
from the Mun, and it's silly. You know, I've passed by it. I've landed on it a couple of times now. I'm excited to go pass by. It's like, oh, I get to see the Mun as I drive by.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
I have to fly by. It's like, hey, it's there.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen it so many times, but it's still cool to fly by it.
Yeah.
You know, because like, hey,
You know, I mean, I've been playing this, you know, for what didn't we establish that I passed the 1 year mark at some point, or
oh yeah,
yeah. As long as I've been playing this, I still, whenever I go around the Mun, I still just marvel at that thing.
Yeah, I think you spend a lot of time in space, just like flying your ship.
Yeah.
Like I am flying through space, you know, and you're waiting for the next thing, or you're time warping, or so whenever you see something, you know, it's like when you're driving on like this really like, you know, Kansas wheat field,
Yeah.
you know, and you're like, there's nothing, hey, a cow, look at that cow, oh man, that cow's so interesting, because there's nothing but fields, and there's that cow, this is so cool, and then you pass the cow, and you're like, okay,
Yeah. The
hey, a billboard.
Going, what are you looking at?
Yeah, a billboard. There's a Denny's. Oh man, Denny's is so fun. Okay, there goes the billboard. So you're like you're driving on this like really remote. There's nothing interesting. You see something, and you're just like, oh, except you're seeing.
I'm assuming your radio is broken.
Yeah. So like, and then you see something like a planet, and you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, you know, it's a planet.
Well, I still get, honestly, excited just being in orbit around Kerbin. Because I'm getting to the point where, and I can't do this with much, but I'm getting to the point where there's a couple of features that I've gotten used to. And so when I'm in orbit around Kerbin and I see those features go by, you know, there's always that little twinge of, hey, I recognize that, which, you know, I can imagine. There's an astronaut on the space station right now that's been tweeting out a lot of pictures. And, you know, and you get kind of that same sense because, you know, it'll be like, you know, here's the boot heel of Italy, you know, here's the Persian Gulf, here's the, you know, and it's kind of that same thrill of recognition. You know, you go, hey, there's the big Kerbin meteor impact. And, you know, there's a certain river formation that I've gotten used to seeing.
Yeah.
And, you know, stuff like that. Duna, for example, there's a valley that runs along the surface. And, you know, every time I see that, it's like, hey, there's that valley. So
Yeah.
anyway, if you haven't played the game, I'm sure somebody listening to this who you know, like they're in a car with somebody who plays the game, and then somebody's like sitting next to them who doesn't play the game. They're probably going, why are they excited about this? It's like, it's cool.
Yeah,
That's
it's cool.
why, because
Yeah.
it's cool. And shut up. And listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might learn something.
Awesome. Okay, now you're go ahead and wait for your progress.
Okay, great. Okay, I had mentioned before that I had installed Roster Prop Monitor, which gives you all of the GWiz instrumentation in the capsule. I have spent the last week trying to fly strictly from a cabin view. Honestly, I feel like a novice again. I feel like I've gone back to zero.
Yeah.
Because without being able to do the external view, just relying solely on the instrumentation panels, it's hard. It's more difficult than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. I imagine.
Yeah.
Well, no, I can't.
Yeah,
'Cause I can't possibly imagine.
Well,
But-
I mean, I'm so used to the external view where you can see everything.
Yeah. You have to have that huge, you know, like,
Yeah.
you could zoom out as much as you want. You're like, you could look at certain parts of your ship,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I literally had to go back to almost day one because it was like, okay, if I'm going to do this strictly from capsule view, from inside the capsule. I mean, it's like I had to relearn how to get into orbit. I had to relearn how to, get into, to actually create an orbit. I had to learn how to deorbit, how to land. I had to figure out how to rendezvous, dock. There are so many things that I've been trying to do in capsule view, which I have done a million times very easily. Now all of a sudden it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because I was relying on that visual aspect of being able to look outside the craft. Mm-hmm. One thing I did figure out is I have to treat the map view as another display.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because there is, as detailed as Roster Prop Monitor is, there's a couple of things that it won't tell you that you can only get from map view. So, for example, when I started, I'm going to try and do my first rendezvous from the capsule view. Mm-hmm. That's when I discovered, after chasing the other thing around, the planet for about 2 or 3 hours, it's like, hold still, dadgummit. I finally realized, I've got to be in map view to do this.
Yeah.
One correction I need to make. Last week I talked about how you can set up cameras in Roster Prop Monitor, and it'll give you up to 8 different views. And I had made the comment that I had a camera pointing forward. And the comment I made was, I said, but it's always offset because obviously you can't put one in the center of your docking hatch. Mm-hmm. Well, turns out in Roster Prop Monitor, if you select a target, it gives you a view from the center of your docking hatch.
Oh, really?
A straight ahead view with a crosshair.
That made things a lot easier, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It actually has made docking much easier because, I'm talking about from a capsule view.
Yeah.
One of the screens that you can call up is literally your straight ahead view, what you're seeing from the center of your docking hatch.
Uh-huh.
And because it gives you the crosshair, and because it gives you a on screen, it gives you the little pink target. You can line up your crosshair with the pink target, and it's different than what I'm used to, because when you're in that view, especially when you're down to like 1 meter or a couple of meters distance between you and your target, the slightest change that you make with your RCS from the screen, from the docking port screen, has the biggest effect. Like, you just tap RCS and it's like, whee, you're right off the side of the screen.
Yeah.
So you really have to be much more precise, but it gives you, visually, it's a lot easier to bring that thing in and dock it. Because, you're looking from the center of your docking hatch to the center of the docking hatch that you're trying to dock with.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot. The other thing I found out, because I've also been playing around with interplanetary transfer, and I went to Duna. I tried repeatedly to land strictly from a cabin view. That was, oh my God, it's like I'd never landed anything in my life.
I wouldn't touch that with my 10-foot pole mod.
Seriously, it was like, and I could land fine.
Yeah.
I could, because I've got 2 cameras. Depends on the craft. A couple of them I only have 2. Some of them I have 3, but I've got cameras pointing down. And
wait, you said 2 to 3 cameras pointing down?
2 to 3 cameras pointing down.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, you get, how many cameras do you get?
You get 8.
Ah.
You can do 8 different views. And I discovered that more than 2 views down doesn't, 3 views down is no better than 2 views down.
Yeah,
so why waste the extra camera?
Diminishing camera returns.
Exactly. Diminishing camera returns.
Yeah.
I have cameras. I've got 1 pointing straight ahead. Mm-hmm. I've got 2 pointing straight down, and then the remainder are all looking off to the side in different directions. Okay. And I also discovered that since I tend to do everything, when I get into orbit, I almost always go on a 90-degree heading. I discovered that I can concentrate my cameras on one side of the ship looking at different angles from that one side, and that's most effective because if I'm flying at a 90-degree heading, and I put cameras looking off in other directions, all I'm seeing is empty space.
Yeah.
Whereas if I concentrate my cameras on the side that's always going to be facing the planet on a 90-degree heading, then those cameras are more effective. So again, I've got one camera pointing forward, two pointing down, and then others are pointing off to the side. Landing on Duna, I'm watching my two cameras that are looking straight down, and I've got one camera selected that's looking off to the side so I can see horizon.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm also flying with the electronic nav ball, which is a little bit more detailed than the standard nav ball that you get. Mm-hmm. This one actually appears on a screen, and it's got a lot of readouts around it. You know, for example, it'll tell you what your horizontal speed is, and it'll tell you what your vertical speed is. I mean, it gives, again, it gives you more information.
Yeah.
I would bring it in for a landing exactly the way I had done it before. And I would come in and I would touch down, less than 5 meters per second. I would set it down and it would be like perfect. Mm-hmm. And I'd go, yay! And then it would fall over. And it'd be like, what? And so I'd, F9 and I'd bring it down and yay! And then it would fall over. And this went on. I think this happened 2 or 3 times. And then finally it landed and then it didn't topple over. So again, it's like I'm relearning.
Yeah.
It's like I've never done this stuff before.
Yeah, it's like you're starting over.
Yeah. The one thing, and I'll ask your opinion on this. Do you think that if you're obviously the whole idea behind flying in a capsule view is, you're trying to be as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
Because obviously astronauts can't do the external view. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to fly from a capsule view and, for example, landing. Let's just focus on landing. Trying to land from a capsule view, there's got to be a line between gameplay and realism, because there are certain realistic aspects that I'm never going to get in the game. Astronauts who, the Apollo astronauts that were actually landing on the moon, they were able to, they were looking out of a window. They were able to move their heads around and get different views as they looked out the window. Mm-hmm. They also had that sensation of motion.
To gauge things.
Yeah. I mean, there was a sensory aspect to it, which you're not going to get from the game, obviously. I mean, obviously in the game, you're not going to feel the sensation of coming down, and you're not going to feel the pads touching down and things like that. The question I'm trying to ask is, how close to realism should I be trying to get? Understanding that there are some aspects, some inputs that I'm just not going to have.
It's like, how real can you get with it? I mean, some people, they've built cockpits and stuff, and they've actually.
I guess the question is, how real should I try to get with it? Understanding that there's some critical ingredients that I'm just not going to ever have.
Yeah. I mean, you're not. It's like you can simulate as much as you want. There's a reason it's still the simulation,
right? Right, because it's the cameras that I'm talking about, they're stationary. You can't move them. So, even though I'm getting a horizon view, or I'm getting a view straight down, one thing that I can't do, which the astronauts could do, is I can't move my head around like you can with a window.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all done this on an airplane. If you've got the window seat on an airplane, you can press your face up against the window, and you can, try and look as far back as you can, and try and look as far forward.
Yeah.
Even though it's a stationary window.
Yeah, you can see the thing on the wing.
Yeah, you can change your perspective just by changing the orientation of your face.
There's something on the wing.
There's something on the wing.
But yeah.
Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
That's little Shatner.
Yeah, that's a Shatner.
Shatner. Or John Lithgow, depending on which one you want to go with.
Yeah. It depends on how willing you are to deal with the frustration of not having those certain things.
Yeah.
So if you really want to go, I want this to be as realistic as possible.
Right.
Well, if you're starting to get frustrated with it.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you stop having fun is the moment you're kind of in it for the wrong reason.
You know what? That is a good answer right there. That's my gauge. The minute it stops being fun.
Yeah, because it's like you want it to have like a certain.
Hey, you get brownie points.
Yeah.
That was a very good answer. I like that.
Yeah, you want it to have a certain like appeal.
Yeah.
To you know, and the appeal is I want it to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't go through. This isn't your job. You didn't go through months of training. You're not at a special compound where they train you how to do all these things. So,
and also, I mean, if I crash, I'm obviously not going to die.
Yeah. So whenever it becomes frustrating and you don't want to do it anymore, well, then you may have gone too far.
Yeah. The one thing that I really do miss, as challenging as cabin view or capsule view, I guess, has been, the one thing that I really miss, Kerbal Space Program is not what I would call a graphically dynamic game by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a very pretty game. It really, when you're in orbit around planets and when you're, orbiting the sun and whatever, I mean, you really do get some really nice views. And not being able to see my ship in orbit going around a planet, and only being able to see the camera views of the planet and things, I really miss those external views, because I love to set the camera when I'm in external mode. I love to set the camera to free. You can select different chase, auto, free. I love to select free, and I love to do it where the horizon line is horizontal across the screen. Not vertical, horizontal.
Yeah.
And it really is kind of cool to either watch your ship from the front as the planet's surface passes underneath you, front to back, or to look at it from a reverse angle and then watch as the scenery passes you from the front.
Yeah.
And it really is. I mean, I can spend a certain amount of time playing the game where all I do is sit there and just marvel.
Yeah.
And, I've created my stable orbit, and now I just sit there and I just marvel at my ship as it orbits, and I watch the scenery pass under it. So that's one thing from capsule view. That's one thing I really miss, is being able to do that.
Have you had anything like whenever you're flying, something happen? Like something break off or whatever, and you couldn't see it with the cameras?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Like, what was that noise?
Yeah.
It's like, you can't see it on any of the cameras, and you're like, well, I hope that wasn't critical.
Yeah, like Firefly. Did something just fall off my ship? Now, there's one other thing I will say. Remember, I mentioned that I had gone to Duna and then came back. There is one of the original Star Trek episodes called Balance of Terror. That was the first episode that we ever saw the Romulans, and he made the comment they had crossed over the neutral zone and then they were trying to get back. And he made the comment about,
it is good we approach the neutral zone. Not too soon for me to see the stars of home.
I had the weirdest experience with my Duna mission this week, which is, it took me a while to get to Duna. And then obviously I went through all the gyrations of trying to land and not topple over. And then of course I got back up into orbit and docked with my tanker and then came back to Kerbin. I had the weirdest sensation, because we're talking a week-long endeavor. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, it took me a week to get to Duna, land, come back, and then return to Kerbin. When I got back to Kerbin and I could see, there in the distance, there was Kerbin and there was the Mun, I had this twinge of nostalgia. Like, I'm home.
Yeah.
I mean, as crazy as that sounds, I felt like, I'm back.
Yeah.
It's like I had gone to this faraway place and I, managed to make it back home. And it's like, there's home. Mm-hmm. And I had this, I mean, I realize I'm really, really stretching the analogy here, but
yeah.
I mean, I kind of felt like someday when we actually do get to a point where we can efficiently travel long distances in space and come back, I mean, I can see people having that reaction to the Earth.
Yeah.
Let's say we go all the way out to, to Jupiter or something, and then, or, even beyond that. When you come back and there's Earth, it's like there's home. You get this twinge of nostalgia, like
it would have to be a massive feeling.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like you're on a road trip or something,
Yeah.
and you're on the last couple of legs, like hours of the drive, and like you're starting to see all the familiar stuff, and you're like,
Right.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine seeing your planet again.
Yeah.
Because whenever, and this is by no means me saying that I understand or completely
Right.
comprehend that feeling. Whenever the guys were going on the moon and stuff, Earth is right there. Like,
Yeah.
you can see it.
Sure.
Imagine going so far you couldn't see Earth anymore.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's in view.
Right.
I imagine that has to be an overwhelming kind of feeling.
It was very interesting because when I first, when I was captured by the Kerbin sphere of influence, my first view was, Kerbin was just this little blue dot, and I could see this little gray dot rotating around it. And I mean, there really was this feeling of, accomplishment. Like I had really journeyed to this faraway place, Duna. And, and when I came back, I didn't nail the return interplanetary transfer very well, because I ended up going around the sun and then coming back.
Oh.
But I did do it in one, I mean, it was like a half circle.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised how bright the sun is when you get close to it.
I bet.
Yeah. When I mean, it's intense, very intense as you come around it. But yeah, I hooked around the sun, and then I was captured by Kerbin, and then I looked, and there was this little blue dot and a little gray dot. And I mean, I really felt like I had gone on this long journey and come home. This is something you and I have talked about personally. I don't think we've ever mentioned in the podcast. One of the things that I think is so cool about video games, and this is any video game. The very first time I ever played an online game with friends, like a first-person shooter or whatever.
Yeah.
The thing that I noticed the next day when we were all together and talking about it, the way we were talking about it was, and then, I jumped out the window and I, did this gun and I shot you. And then,
it's not. And then I controlled the character.
Yeah. And then I right clicked and then
Yeah.
I, space barred. And no, you don't talk about it that way.
Yeah.
You talk about it like you're really doing it. And I think that's, for all the naysayers about video games, I think that's one thing that they miss is that video games, they relate to something very visceral, in that, it allows you to inhabit this other space. It enables, and human beings, we insert ourselves into those games.
Yeah.
We aren't controlling, when people play Halo, they don't talk about how, and then Master Chief did this. No, they say, and then I did this. And Kerbal is the same thing, which is, I could say, my crew was Jebediah or whoever, Jebediah went to Duna. No, I went to Duna.
Yeah.
I came home from Duna. And so that's, to me, one of the biggest appeals of video games is always that you get in there and you lose yourself. I know that you really enjoy playing Payday 2 with friends. Mm-hmm. When you talk to them, how do you talk?
Yeah, I talk about, and so, and then they bust in through this door, and like we're trying to. I say we or I, or it's all these, like personal pronouns.
Yeah.
It's like we are doing this. This, because whenever I'm referring to other players, like let's say I'm playing with just random people, I don't say the guy who was controlling Dallas did this. I was like, that guy did that.
Right.
Like he did it. He's controlling the thing. But like he is controlling his experience, and I was experiencing what he was doing.
And that's unique to video games because nobody reads a book or watches a movie and describes it in a first person perspective.
Yeah.
You know, it's always, you know, Captain Kirk did this, or, you know, Spock did that.
Yeah, because he did that.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have anything to do with whether or not he would.
Right.
And every time you see it, it's going to happen.
But if you played a Star Trek game as Kirk, you would be talking about how you did it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's before I stretch that too long. We'll progress from our progression. But that's what I've been doing this week. I have been relearning how to control my ship strictly from a capsule view, and I will say it's very challenging. It's a lot of fun. It's a whole new way to play the game.
Yeah.
So
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever touch it, but that's really cool.
I will tell you this much. This is not something I would have attempted a year ago.
Yeah.
When you're starting out, you know, you need every advantage you can possibly have.
Mm-hmm.
It is because if you're going strictly from a capsule view, if you're looking at your data screens, if you don't know what your apoapsis and periapsis data means, if you don't know what, you know, your horizontal and vertical speeds, and if you don't know what all of that stuff means just by looking at it, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way you're going to do anything. You have to have basically flying the game from the external point of view visually teaches you what all of that means. And there is a point at which you can take out the visual aspect and still understand what all the data means. And that's when you can start flying by a capsule view. But to start out from a capsule view, I would not recommend it.
No. You would come out of it having if you managed to stick with it and got it down, you would have a very crazy level of skill. But the entry point is pretty expensive.
Well, you know how you always hear that joke about cow tipping. The Kerbal version of it would be capsule tipping.
Yeah.
You know, at least the way I was landing. Because it's like every time I sat down, I would just topple right over.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. As always, it is time for Dark Mushroom in this week's Dark Matters. He's been doing a 3-part series on rendezvous and docking, and this is part 3.
Approaching directly at low velocity is this week's Dark Matter. My name's Dark Mushroom, and at long last, we cover the final, most challenging, most satisfying part of our rendezvous mission, docking. So, let's say Jebediah has mostly matched orbits with her orbiting refueler. Her target, a scant 2 kilometers away, looms ahead above the horizon, full of fuel critical for her Duna mission. With a tight jaw and steely eye, she begins her final approach. On your nav ball, now set to target distance and speed, there are 4 critical sets of markers. Your ship's green prograde, the open circle, green retrograde, the X'd out circle, the target prograde, which is a large pink circle, and the target retrograde, a pink dot with 3 pink lines. Don't get hung up on terminology. These symbols just indicate your ship and target's direction of motion. Now, let's match them up. First, take note of where your progrades are in relation to one another. To align them, we want to do small burns on the opposite side of our target prograde. That is, if your prograde is on the left of the target prograde, burn on the right until they sit on top of one another. During this approach, always be aware of your relative velocity, and try to keep it at or under 5 meters per second. If you're approaching too quickly, flip your ship around and burn close to your retrograde on the same side until they match. Then directly retrograde until your speed is under control. If your ship is too massive or unwieldy to easily rotate, you can do all of these maneuvers with RCS using the instructions ahead. Approach to around 50 meters and zero out your velocity by pointing prograde, flipping on your RCS, switching to docking mode in the bottom left, and holding S. If your nav ball is facing north up, the W, A, D, and S controls should visually match your direction 1-to-1. If not, switch back to staging and rotate appropriately. Next, right-click on the most convenient port and set it as your target. Now is also a good time, in staging, to do a rough visual alignment of your ship to the docking port, which I'm going to assume is straight ahead. Repeat this process of realigning, burning forward with W, translating left and right with A and D, and slowing down with S to get down under 3 meters in distance. you will notice the docking magnets activate and attract one another. If you notice any wobbling, turn off SAS and RCS and, with a little patience, your two ships should become one. Congratulations! After wiping the sweat off your brow and breathing for the first time in 5 minutes, spam screenshots of your success at Kerbalcast on Twitter. Also, as usual, send any questions to @DarkMushroom87 on Twitter or by emailing kerbalpodcast@gmail.com with the subject line Dark Matter. And remember, in the words of John Powell, there's the whole myth about rocket science. It's not really that hard. It's not brain surgery.
It's funny. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess brain surgery would be the more difficult of those two.
Yeah, the two.
I don't know. That was very good.
As
usual. It's amazing how he takes these very complex things and just boils them down.
It's like, oh, here's a couple minutes. I'm going to tell you to do this thing that you'd have to read pages of text in order to get down.
Well, don't forget, as always, if you have a question for him, be sure and send them in because Dark Mushroom is there to answer the questions. Well, let's find out what's going on as far as letters from listeners and Kerbal news as well. Time now for this week's mission briefing, and I will let you start. What do you have first?
From Stevie. Hey, Biff and Nos. First off, thanks for an amazing podcast. I was a bit late finding your show and have just managed to catch up to episode 18. Well, hey, we're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't even listen to episode 1 anymore.
You know what? To me, it's like I try and forget that episode 1 exists.
I don't know. I don't know if we ever.
I go back and it's like if I listen to it now, it's like it's so painful.
Actually, I don't mind listening to it. I'm not fond of the memory of making it because it was our first thing. But I don't know if we ever mentioned it. But when we recorded episode 1, we did most of it, and then that was whenever we realized we left the mic off.
Oh yeah.
We
forgotten about that.
We recorded like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like we took a break and we came back. We were like, all right, and we recorded it, and it was like the best the show would ever have been.
Yeah.
And then we look over and the mics weren't turned on.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh.
That's when we discovered we should wear headphones.
Yeah. It's like we need to go over this again. Back to Stevie. I've been playing KSB for a bit under a year. Don't know how many hours I'm on. Probably several hundred. Lots of games and lots of sandwich time.
That's your term.
Yeah.
Sandwich time.
Been to the Mun, Minmus, lots of times and built bases on both. Gone to Duna a few times. Haven't gone too much further than that, as I like playing with Remote Tech 2 and TAC Life Support, which both make it harder to get too far without lots of pre-planning. And my physics degree probably helps that too. Oh, you just got to get a physics degree.
Yeah, that's all you have to do. Well, hey, it's just rocket science. It's not brain surgery.
Nas mentioned in the latest podcast that he was having a problem with his controls being occasionally unresponsive when leaving Time Warp. I, too, have had that problem at times. It's almost always my fault, but sometimes it might be a random bug. So it's his fault my controls aren't working.
That's exactly right.
Stevie, you got to lay off, man. I'm trying to play the game.
Now you got a scapegoat.
The number one cause is that I'm still in Time Warp. I've lost count of the times I've hit the Time Warp key enough and thought, what's going on? I'm going to miss the node. This launch was a waste. I'll have to revert. Oh, I'm still in Time Warp. And
I don't know why I didn't think of that. That is such a good solution to the problem you were having. It never occurred to me. You can be like, let's say you're in 5 times Time Warp.
Yeah, it's hard to notice in space.
It's hard to notice. Because you were going, I don't understand why my ship's not being responsive. And it's like...
I don't actively remember enough to think if that was the problem, but I wasn't able to steer the ship.
Yeah.
Which I've been able to steer a ship in Time Warp.
If you can do if you're in Time Warp where it will only do a maximum of 4 times, you can still steer.
Okay.
If it immediately jumps to 5 times Time Warp, then you cannot steer. Yeah.
If I experience the problem again, I'll double check it. So right now, maybe I was in Time Warp. I'm not sure.
But you know what? That's such a good solution, and it didn't even occur to me.
Yeah, that is a good solution. I think that mine still may be a different case because I couldn't turn my RCS and SAS on and off.
Well, you can't do that in Time Warp either.
Really? Okay, maybe I was in Time Warp.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm in denial.
There was I'm kicking myself for not remembering who sent this in, but somebody told me, they gave a tip, and I think it was on Twitter, but they said that if you do want to do a Time Warp where you still have control, Again, you can't do more than 4 times, but the 4 times time warp only kicks in if you're like close to a planet.
Yeah.
If you're further out from a planet, but you still want to accelerate your time, but still have control as well. You know how you use the period and the comma key to increase or decrease time warp?
Yeah.
Alt period or comma key speeds it up or slows it down, and you can still control it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So
wait, alt period or alt comma?
Yeah, it's like if you want to increase it, it's here. I need to look at the keyboard. Yeah, it's alt period increases it.
Yeah.
And allows you to have control. Once you've increased it, then alt comma brings you back down. Obviously.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. That may have been the problem I had.
That was a neat tip. I actually,
Yeah.
because like for example,
It's like, I don't know, something so small, but that was the thing that.
But like for example, if you want to accelerate, if you want to like burn your thrusters,
Yeah.
but still time accelerate, you can use the alt feature.
Oh, okay.
So anyway,
And just to wrap up, Stevie,
learn something new every day.
once again, awesome show, and keep up the great work. Thanks, Stevie. That's really
Thank you
helpful.
very much.
Fly safe, and don't forget the parachute or solar panels, batteries, snacks.
Yay! We have a new sign off.
All right. It's over to you.
I love our sign-offs. Okay, we have another letter from North Star, and before I read it, I have to apologize. He sent in a very lengthy letter about performing an interplanetary transfer.
Yeah.
It was about 8 pages, and I tried to chop it down to just a few paragraphs, and I ended up combining a couple of things and just totally butchered.
It's like whenever you have a test over a part of a textbook,
Yeah.
and you have to do like, I can only fit it on the index card,
Right.
And then, yeah.
Well, I didn't catch this until I went back and listened, but I had to, and it sounds like what I'm saying, in order to do an interplanetary transfer, that you have to get outside of the Kerbin system and then do the burn. No, you do it in Kerbin orbit. Set a maneuver node while you're in Kerbin orbit, and then use that to create your interplanetary transfer. And as we'd been talking about with orbital rendezvous, interplanetary transfer is like, it's very similar to orbital rendezvous, just on a massive scale. The same principle applies in that if a planet is further away from the sun, it is at a higher altitude relative to you. Consequently, you're moving, if you're on Kerbin and you're trying to get to Duna, because it's further away from the sun, is moving slower relative to Kerbin. Kerbin is moving faster. Therefore, if you want to go from Kerbin to Duna, Duna has to be ahead of you in the orbit for you to make an efficient transfer. And that also works in reverse as well. So anyway, I messed that up. I apologize. We'll talk more about interplanetary transfer later on. But I wanted to make sure that was clear. To do an efficient interplanetary transfer, you start in Kerbin orbit, or you start in planetary orbit, I should say. You don't get outside the system and then do it. Okay, so moving on. This is the actual North Star letter. Oh, and you know what? I messed up 2 things last week.
What?
Well, the other one was minor. But you remember I was trying to talk about how to bring up the nav ball in the map screen? I said you use your insert key. It's your delete key.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening to it later, and I went, no, you
You
dummy.
know, for an entire week, there's been somebody who's just been smashing that insert key. And like,
Why
it's
isn't
still
it
not
working?
working. It's still not working.
Damn you, Biff! No! Okay. Okay, from North Star. Greetings again to the Kerbalcast team. In episode 17, I noticed some discussion of sending fuel tankers to Joule, and the best way to send fuel tankers there, such as to arrive with a decent amount of fuel left in the tanks. I thought I could be of some help in this matter. If you set up a fuel depot in orbit around the Mun, Minmus, or Ike, or Duna, then you can consolidate the fuel supplies into a smaller number of full tankers that will proceed the rest of the way to Joule. The empty fuel tankers should ideally be provided with enough mass of fuel to return to Kerbin for reusability. Using this plan, your newly full consolidated tankers will have to proceed a smaller gap in delta V in order to arrive at Joule and thus arrive with more fuel left in the tanks. This will also save fuel and get more of it to Joule, as you will spend less fuel pushing empty tanker mass all the way to Joule. This is also related to, do you remember last week I had said that for novices wanting to practice orbital rendezvous, put a tanker in orbit with lots of empty tanks and then keep sending up more tankers to refuel it so that you create a refueling station. This is what I was talking about right here, which is you can create refueling stations kind of halfway.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to get to Jewel, create a refueling station at Duna. So anyway, because as he said, the delta V to get from Duna to Jewel is a lot less than it is to get from Kerbin to Jewel.
Not near as steep.
Anyway, what is our next? Oh, and thank you very much for North Star. Sorry I messed up your letter last week, but mea culpa. What do you have?
I got a tweet.
You got a tweet?
Ascalon on Twitter. Dark Mushroom, thanks. You made rescuing Kerbals way easier. Now my first base waits for your next chapter. Well, you just got it.
You got it. Yeah, he's talking about the orbital, the rendezvous and docking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you have to be able to get that down to do the like rescue whatever Kerman from.
You can't rescue him if you can't get close to him. How's that?
You got to get close.
You got to get close.
Get
closer. Okay.
Cuddlecast.
Okay. Is it me?
Yep.
Okay. This is a news story. This comes from the Australia Kotaku website, and it's called "Gamer Builds an Actual Working Flight Computer for Kerbal Space Program." Quote, Kerbal Space Program has a whole lot of numbers and variables behind it that influence how your spaceships work and where they go. Well, what better way to keep track of them than with this NASA-inspired flight computer? Built by Redditor KK4TEE, this little box is basically a computer that can interpret data supplied by a Kerbal Space Program mod called Telemachus. The design is based on NASA's DISKey, an interface unit used during the Apollo program. It's heavy stuff. It really shows how deep Kerbal Space Program is and how much there is to the game beyond building rockets and having them blow up. There's a lot to fall in love with, and I guess that building a working flight computer is just one geeky and awesome way to show that love. And I actually tweeted out a link to this story, so if you'll check out our Twitter feed, at Kerbalcast, you can go to the actual story itself. It has pictures, and it's cool because it really does look like the NASA. It looks like the Apollo onboard computer for the LIM.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the computer that has the noun verb interface.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it looks like.
Huh.
It's so cool that
Yeah.
I just again.
Eventually, there's going to be like a whole somebody's going to make a mission control desk and stuff, and there's going to be a bunch of ashtrays and.
I'm still waiting. I am still waiting for the Matrix interface where they have a data port in the back of my head and they just plug me in and I can just be in the game.
So you can have some tasty wheat?
Yes, I want some tasty wheat. And, and I'll take the lady in red with me on the flight.
Oh, yeah. From Matt BP. Hi, Biff and Nos.
Hello.
Regarding Biff's right-click problem, don't worry, you aren't the only one.
Yay.
I first noticed this problem while playing the game in windowed mode, not full screen, and trying to left-click icons like files or folders on the desktop while KSP 0.24 was running in the background. Upon left-clicking to try to open a file or folder, my computer would think I right-clicked and the file doesn't open. The fix for this is to simply right-click outside KSP and then left-click will work as normal. I also get the same problem Biff was describing, where spamming the right mouse button is the only way to right-click a part. However, I've noticed the amount of times I have to click the right mouse button increases as I play the game for longer periods of time. I found it becomes unplayable after an hour or two of gameplay.
This started with 0.24.
Oh, it started whenever the...
Well, remember
the
when 0.24 came out, just a few days later, they tweeted out, they said, if you're having problems with the right click, we've released a fix.
Okay.
And it did fix it.
Yeah.
But...
the longer you play,
I haven't correlated gameplay time. With me, it seems like the number of times I revert.
Yeah.
But
okay.
what I may be doing there is I may be interpreting the length. It may not be the number of times I revert. It may be the amount of time I'm actually playing. So that's a variable I hadn't considered.
I haven't managed to find a permanent fix for this problem yet, apart from using the tracking station or restarting the game entirely. But hopefully this will give you some insight into the problem and keep up the good work. P.S. I play the 64X version of KSP 0.24 on Windows 7. It would be great to know if any other listeners have this problem on another operating system like Mac or Linux, and if this bug is both in 32 and 64-bit versions of KSP.
Yes, please pass that along. I actually forwarded that letter to Max Maps at Squad. I just said this might be of interest because I know that you remember he said that they listen to us.
Yeah,
because they pick up things.
Okay, so he was talking about the problem,
right?
And you've been saying but you're doing it on Linux, so I guess that answers. I have a copy of it on Linux, but I primarily play it on my laptop, which is Windows 7. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So because
actually you have the same setup he does then.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Ooh.
What I did was I was playing the Linux version initially, and then that's back when I got my gaming laptop.
Yeah.
And ever since then it's been Katie bar the door. So what I love about this is something that's brand new for me. I've never had this experience because I've been a PC gamer since forever. Okay, it was honestly I did not have a console for the longest time. I was a PC gamer long before I was ever console gamed.
Yeah.
Who goes next?
It's yours.
It's my turn.
Yeah.
Okay. This comes from the KSP website. It says, quote, we are pleased to announce a new milestone in the development of KSP Update 0.25. Experimentals. Tests are being made and things are being tightened up in this final phase before release. Keep an eye out on Tumblr and all of our other official channels for further news. And it's your turn.
From Polygon.com, pre-orders have begun on Amazon for the Homeworld Remastered Collector's Edition.
Okay. I'm the one that threw that in the pile. This is completely non-Kerbal related, but Homeworld was one of my all-time favorite games until I came across Kerbal, and they are remastering the game. If you've never played Homeworld and you like games like Civilization and Sins of a Solar Empire and stuff, you definitely want to get this.
Gearbox Software, which bought the Homeworld franchise during the 2013 liquidation of THQ, has not provided a release date, only a placeholder for the end of the year, but said it hopes to publish Homeworld Remastered sometime this fall. The release includes both Homeworld and Homeworld 2 updated with new ship models and high-resolution textures. The Collector's Edition offers a 12-inch USB-powered light-up spaceship from the series.
Yeah, the mothership.
A digital download key to get the game on Steam, plus a die-cast keychain and an art book for the low cost of $99.99.
I'm the one that added the low cost part. Because they said $499.99, and I thought, oh, that's I just had to throw in low.
I like those collector's editions because it's really funny if the game doesn't go over too well,
right? And
you see that collector's edition, it's like, oh yeah. I ended up buying the collector's edition of Tabula Rasa from Walmart for like $5 because it was clearanced out, and I think the game wasn't even like live anymore. I think the servers were like,
were dark,
had gone dim. But I bought it because it came with a pair of dog tags that were like, they weren't colored or anything. They're just silver dog tags because I was using them for a costume that I was dressing as the scout from Team Fortress 2. So I was like, I needed dog tags, and I walked by and I was like,
there's
oh,
a $5 pair.
And I look and I turn it over. It's like, oh yeah. So I just popped it open and threw the game aside. So like this game that they made in that collector's edition was like $80.
Right.
And I threw it. I was like, oh hey, dog tags. And just chuck their game off to the side.
Well, this game will not suck. I can promise.
Yeah.
Homeworld is one of the very few games, and this is unique. I've never done this before, and I don't think I've ever done it since. The first time I played Homeworld, I played it start to finish. I loved it so much, I played it start to finish again. I mean, I did literally 2 complete playthroughs in a row.
Wow.
And I've never done that. It's a great game. It reminds me a lot of Battlestar Galactica. The plot line is that there is, you're in charge of this race of people, and there's an alien attack, and what's left of your race has this little armada of ships, and you go off looking for this mythical homeworld, and you have to make of course the aliens are chasing you all the way, trying to stop you from getting there. So it's very Battlestar, and the music is very good too. It's adagio for strings, but it's done with a choir.
Oh.
So anyway, good game. Completely off the topic of Kerbal, but I if you like Sins of a Solar Empire, you will love this game. It's my turn. Okay.
Yes.
This comes from Futurama King. Hey guys, love your podcasts and I love the game. A couple episodes back, as we talked about, Nos has gotten a publishing contract for a board game that he's created called Garbage Day.
Yeah.
And we did a whole But I Digress about it. Nos, I really would like to know if you've heard Weird Al Yankovic's Trash Day song.
Oh! It was like the last day before Trash Day. My place was getting kinda nasty. Even though the garbage I knew would read, thought that I could leave it for one more week. Then there's something rotten here. Say what? You better hold your nose. Hey, you disgusting son. Oh, boy, there's a lot here. And every day it grows. Hey, you disgusting son. If you wanna throw, it makes me wanna. Just makes me wanna.
It really reminds me of your new game and vice versa. Maybe you should use it as the official game song. And then there's a smiley emoticon. And we have a sign off.
Okay.
Don't forget your staging and make sure you have the correct Kerbal in the cockpit.
It's like the time that I kept trying to get all the Kerbals out of the cockpit.
Yeah, I figured that would be perfect for you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my last letter. What do you have?
From Point Andy Shoot. Hey, Biff. Nos.
Hello.
I'm still catching up from the start and have just finished episode 11 where you discussed .24. I am a new player with about 50 hours and started in a .24 world. I started in career mode but quickly became disillusioned as I felt the contracts were limiting me rather than pushing my development.
Episode 11? I can't remember that far back.
I restarted in science mode and have been enjoying it ever since. Starting out with the bare minimum of parts is great for new players to avoid confusion, and acquiring science to get new parts is enough to keep pushing me to explore new places. Happy Kerbling. Cheers from an Australian fan.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're going to move on now to Modder's Minute, brought to us by DK from the Twitch TV channel Declarations.
This week we're talking about a mod that I could not live without. Precise Node is another mod that should have some, if not all, of its features integrated into the base game. Maneuver nodes are wonderful, but in certain instances you really have to start playing around with them in order to do larger maneuvers with any degree of accuracy, particularly interplanetary ones. Precise Node gives you absolute control over your nodes. You can change precisely the vector and magnitude of your burn. You can change your burn 0.01 delta V at a time. At the risk of overusing the word, it's precise. It also gives you some great key bindings on your numpad for those of us who like to use the mouse as little as possible. Additional features include being able to snap your node to your periapsis, apoapsis, or your ascending and descending nodes, as well as giving you a readout of your ejection angle when you're leaving your current sphere of influence. Again, this is a mod that is simply hard to live without. I recommend giving it a try, and chances are you simply won't be able to go back to not using it.
All right, thank you. Again, DK with the Twitch TV channel Declarations and this week's Modder's Minute.
Thanks, DK.
Thank you. Very good. It just amazes me how good.
Yeah, we got some good people.
We got good people. When you when you come to Kerbal Podcast, you're family.
Oh no. No.
Don't you like that?
No, I don't.
If you listen to Kerbal Podcast, you might be a green neck.
Remember whenever you crashed into the ground?
Yeah.
Kerbalcast remembers.
Yeah, we remember. Like a good neighbor, Kerbals are there.
Okay, we're moving on. We are moving on.
Yeah. Ironically, we're moving on to But I Digress. Oh, there's a commentary.
Yeah. Okay, so last episode we got a letter, and it was talking about But I Digress, and it actually elicited a lot of response from
as opposed to
other,
illicit.
Yeah, from our other listeners. What the letter was about, part of the letter, said that he wasn't too wild about us going off topic for, but I digress. And he's like, it's a podcast about Kerbal Space Program. You guys
should actually talk about Kerbal.
Yeah, it's like you guys like. I like it when you guys talk about the Kerbal stuff. Everything else just kind of detracts from what you guys are there for. Yeah,
he basically said, it's Kerbal, but you only spend about 50% of the time talking about Kerbal.
Yeah. So we read the letter because we take and like all criticism. Mm-hmm. So, we wanted everyone to know that we do take criticism and what his thoughts were on the podcast. Because we read in a lot of letters, like we could take out the parts where people say, hey, we love the podcast. But we read that because it's
you suck.
Yeah. It's like we read the parts where people say, hey, we like the podcast.
Well, I mean, we have said since day one, we're going to be honest. I mean, if we make mistakes, we're going to admit them. If we get criticism, we're going to read it. If we get praise, we're going to read it.
Yeah, and we like to change the show as we move on and go on and do stuff. We like to have an evolving show instead of this like set thing that we think we have to follow.
Well, this letter generated quite a bit of response. And the reason that we're talking about But I Digress in the But I Digress is because, quite frankly, we're a little confused as to what to do at this point.
Yeah, we just kind of want to see everybody's perspective of it. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and read. We had some responses to that letter. I'm just going to go ahead and throw those out.
While you do this, I've got a checklist here. I've got pro and con.
Okay.
And I'm going to count last week's letter as one. So right now it's like 0 pro and 1 con.
Pro digress and anti digress.
There you go.
So Brent G on Twitter said, don't lose the off-topic parts of your show. Those are great. You've introduced me to movies and other stuff that's been fun.
Oh, so I'll put 1 under pro.
Okay. Alex B, in response to that, said, agreed. Watched your report on your recommendation, and it was great.
Okay, so 2 under pro.
Peter R, gents, your show is awesome. I do agree with one of the letters regarding your movie talks. It is a bit boring. Everything else is great.
Ooh. Okay, so 2 for con.
Yep, keep up the great work and greetings from South Africa.
Hey, we're split. We got 2 and 2.
We got a tiebreaker. Nope.
Oh, do we?
From Millen on Twitter, I would suggest you digress about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the book or the movie by Douglas Adams. Okay, it's not really a tiebreaker, it's a request.
Yeah, that's a request. Okay.
So thanks, Millen.
We want to hear from you. Please send us a response on Twitter or send us a response on our email account.
Should we get a hashtag campaign going? Let's be obnoxious.
Yeah, we could do
keep digress, ditch digress.
Hashtag yes digress, hashtag no digress. But yeah, we want to hear from you because, we have been making alterations to the podcast as we've gone. When we started, we were really scrambling for content.
Yes.
So we did things like we talked about general space news and we talked about general science news.
Yeah. Talked about other games.
Yeah. Talked about other games and we tossed in, But I Digress, because the first episode, honestly, would have been about 5 minutes. Without But I Digress. It would have been
without
hey,
us
everybody.
Just talking about other stuff.
I'm Biff. That's Nas. Kerbal. Bye.
Yeah, we put in some space news. We talked about FTL for a little bit. Yeah, it would have been really short.
Yeah. So what we did, as we've gone on, we got rid of the space news. We got rid of the science news. We initially, we had the letters in one section called the crew report, and we had the news in another section called mission briefing. We combined those
into mission briefing because we got tired of trying to say crew report without messing up.
We were having trouble with crew report. For some reason, our lips would just not make it.
So we got rid of that.
And also, we got a letter. I got a couple of letters several podcasts back saying, could you guys talk more about mods? We've introduced Modders Minute. Thank you, DK.
Yeah.
We've had requests to do more instructional stuff. That's where Dark Mushroom came in. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, this podcast evolves over time.
Yeah.
And really the last holdover right now is But I Digress.
Yeah.
Minus that, I won't say we're 100% Kerbal because Nos and I, it is impossible for us to have a conversation without us going off topic on something.
Yeah.
But we try to stay on topic, Kerbal, as much as humanly possible. And we want to hear from you. Do you want us to keep But I Digress? Do you want us to stop doing But I Digress? Do you want us to only do but I digress when we have something to talk about.
Yeah, instead of doing
Interstellar, the Christopher Nolan movie, Interstellar, will be coming out. We're going to want to talk about that, obviously, because we're both fanboys.
Yeah, but if we don't have much to go off of, maybe we won't do anything.
Yeah. Another suggestion. Do you want us to put a time limit on digress? Do you want us to put it at 5 minutes?
Yeah. For instance, we just passed a 5-minute mark on talking about this.
Yeah.
So, like,
I mean,
just
we could play. What we could do if you want us to keep digress, but keep it at 5 minutes. I mean, we could literally go, here's but I digress. If you don't want to hear it, skip 5 minutes. And then we'll be back.
Or we can keep it how it is, and whenever you get to that point, you can just skip off. It's like...
So what we want to do, we want to hear from you. Gmail, our email account is kerbalpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to send us a tweet...
You can do it at Kerbalcast.
Yeah. And are we doing the hashtag?
Well,
yes, digress.
We're
no
gonna
digress.
we're gonna get the tweets either way. So
Yeah,
I say
I guess so.
make your own hashtags.
Yeah.
It took me for a while to even understand how that stuff works.
Yeah.
Just hashtag whatever you want.
Yeah, it'd be like hashtag shut the hell up. Okay, so that's probably our shortest but I digress on record, and it may be our last but I digress. But anyway, we do definitely want to hear from you. Well, let's move on. It is time for this week's Shay Challenge.
Okay, Shay Challenge. I do have a challenge, 2 again. For those that have made their asteroid base, another piece is required. A detachable defense system, like a missile or a large array of small ones. I do encourage mods for this challenge. For those
he's really doing double duty, because he does, we say the Shay Challenge. It's actually
the Shay,
2.
Yeah, the Shay Challenge is.
Yeah, it's the Shay by challenges.
For those who decided to take the easier path making a Kerbal cannon, I want you to try again, but this time not on Kerbin. That's right, it's off to the Mun. After trying my own design for the Bob Launcher Mark III, I realized that I was getting atmospheric effects. Bob was being slowed down greatly by air friction, and who needs that? On the Mun, having no atmosphere, a Kerbal would be able to fly much farther. So my challenge is to get a Kerbal into orbit using only the cannon and his jetpack. Breathe deep, fly far.
Fly far,
it's usually fly high,
especially in no atmosphere.
Yeah,
you can really fly far.
Low gravity, no atmosphere.
Well, thank you again. That's Shay,
another contributor.
Another contributor.
Yeah.
I have to say, I appreciate.
Good batch of folks here.
Yeah, I appreciate what everybody. It's incredible the amount of contributions and the quality of the contributions. We get Dark Matters from Dark Mushroom. It's great. DK does Modders Minute. It's great.
Yeah,
Shay does the challenges. It's great. Of course, we do the podcast. Not so great.
Yeah, we get by.
We're okay. We're here to fill in between the good stuff. So anyway, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. That's episode 19 of Kerbalcast.
Yeah.
Should we make a course correction? Now the title makes sense.
Okay, we want to give out some thanks. We want to thank all of our listeners, everyone who's written a letter, and all of our contributors.
DK, obviously, Dark Mushroom, and Shay.
We want to thank Squad. Thanks for making the game, so we have something to talk about.
And so I have something to do.
Yeah. The subreddit moderators of KSP Testing and the Kerbal Space Program subreddits.
And Kerbal Academy. Yeah, they were nice enough to put a link to our podcast on their front page.
Yeah,
so
that really helped us in the beginning.
They plug us, we plug them.
Yeah. And Professor Soap has made all the music for the podcast. No, he didn't. He didn't make the music. He made music and we used it.
No, he made it just for us.
Yeah, just for us.
That's what he was thinking about.
All the music you've heard on the podcast is by Professor Soap. You can find him at facebook.com/Professor Soap.
If he wasn't thinking about us, he would not have done a song called Space-Time Fabric.
It's called Space-Time Fabric Softener, actually. Whenever I send it to you, it's abbreviated. He's actually on tour right now.
Is he really?
I'm pretty sure he's on tour. So you can look up tour dates and see if he's moving around.
I think it would be so cool if, Dove was sponsoring the tour. Dove soap.
Yeah.
Or like Right Guard.
Yeah, if
that's the Professor Soap Right Guard tour.
If he sold soap at his shows.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you ever want to get in contact with us, you can find us at kerbalpodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at Kerbalcast.
And as always, you can download episodes directly from kerbalpodcast.libsyn.com, or you can subscribe to us on iTunes. And that does it for this week's edition of Kerbalcast. As always, may you always have a star to steer by and enough fuel to get you home. I am your LMP, Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin, And our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
Happy Kerbeling.
DK with the Twitch TV channel Declarations has another Modders Minute. I butchered that. Dark Mushroom wraps up his...
Maybe I should do that too.
Just do the whole podcast.
Just do the whole
Just do it.
podcast.
Dark Mushroom wraps up his... And actually, I've never seen Raiders of the Lost Ark either. I've never seen the Indiana Jones movie.
Just to preserve your sanity, they only made 2 Indiana Jones movies. Trust me, if there were 4 Indiana Jones movies, 2 of them would suck. Badly. Horribly.
Dark Mushroom wraps up his...
DK with the Twitch TV channel Declarations has another...
This is really bad. First off, thanks for an amazing podcast. I was a bit late funding.
Yeah, fund us. Using this plan, your newly... This comes from Kotaku. Did I say that right?
Kotaku?
Kotaku?
Yeah, Kotaku.
Okay, thank you.
Hakuna Kotaku.
Hakuna Kotaku. Quote, Kerbal Space Program has a lot of numbers and variables.
Happy Kerbeling.
Happy Kerbeling.
Happy
Kerbeling.
Kerbeling.
Happy Kerbeling. Happy Kerbeling. Yeah. Happy Kerbeling. We're fading out. A little bit softer now. A little bit louder now. A little bit louder now. Never mind.